go through it's almost like you're going through the motions, where you have this every week, you go here, you do this, then we go over the problem. So basically anybody who had a problem gets it resolved, and there's never any real conflict, right? Like as long as you're trying to go with the curriculum, everything will go fine. You may not be the top of the class, and you'll probably not be the bottom of the class, but you know what I mean? You'll just be in that middle area chugging along, so that when you finish, you're just like, all right, well, I know some more skills now, but what do I do with that? So thankfully somebody, I don't know who, all happenstance, I checked Slack one day after I had graduated, and it was a group of people. It was a whole Slack channel of people like, after you graduate, what do you do? Right? Everyone's like, hey, they're just posting like job links that they see online. They're posting like hackathons, they're posting this and that. And then at a happenstance, I saw Mint Bean. I clicked on it. They had 3 hackathons. I signed up for all 3, and they were back-to-back hackathons. So that was a pretty rough month for me. Thankfully, I was able to win one of the hackathons, which was a great booster. But even out of all 3, I only finished one, the one I was able to win. But I went through the whole process for all 3 of them, which I felt super important. Like, the other 2 where I didn't finish my project, I still went to review day. I still went to the code mentor. I still spoke to people. I still talked. On review day, I felt that like, oh man, I don't have crap, right? Like, look at these people, they got awesome stuff. But whatever, you suck it up. Like, I need to learn how to get to that position. So let me just, moments of vulnerability are really important in this whole journey, because it's such a, like, at least from the people that I've spoken with, it's such a connection to oneself, right? Like, we take all of this personally. What we can learn, how we can implement the code, we almost see it as a direct reflection of us. So like at the beginning, for me, there was a lot of stubbornness. So there was a lot of unwillingness to be vulnerable. And in my head, it's just like, you know what, I got it. I can figure it out. I'm a smart guy, all these things, right? And by doing this, by building up this structure of everything relying on you, when stuff goes wrong, it's because of you, because you just built it all on top of yourself, like as the load bearing column to that whole thing. But when you like open up and let yourself be vulnerable and like say, okay, I need help. Okay, I need to join a community. Okay, I need someone to help me. When you get to that point, things start moving in the right direction. If you think you're going to be a one-man army and do everything 100% perfect the first time, that is the worst approach. You're only going to beat yourself up over it. You're going to get more anxiety. You're going to get all these things, and it's all self-created. So that's one of the key things that I've learned in my journey is that, yeah, tech is complicated. Tech, it's like learning anything that's like a skill that's really complicated. The real challenges you have to come across are very internalized, that you build as you learn, because of how we all learn, but the way, because the reason that Mint Bean works is the community aspect. The fact that we're able to allow ourselves to be vulnerable to a point where we can actually accept other people's information and actually give information, and it can connect in a way where like, oh, I know that person knows where I'm coming from. I know that person has felt the way I do. I don't know if that's an intro, but that's what I got.
Dude, you killed it. You nailed it. If there were like awards that were going out for intros, I think you'd get one.
All right.
So that was stellar. Zach, John, you guys have some like serious shoes to fill there. But before I pass the intros, thank you for all the love for Mint Bean. That really does mean a lot. Yeah, like I'll speak on it briefly. I've gone through my own journey, and trust me, it was like those rejections, like they sit with you, and they make you question, like, especially for someone coming into it at an older age. And I know everyone's perception of an older age is different as well, but you have your goals of like, hey, by the time I hit my mid-20s, I want to be here. And when you're not there, like, it just, you compare yourself to other people. And Monarch is self-taught, and that's like before like boot camps, before YouTube, before Udemy, and that was a different experience back then too. There weren't a ton of mentorships, and even like so, we knew that community is really, really important for developers, and we really wanted to create a space that wasn't really. It wasn't just about Monarch and I, it wasn't about our experience, but it was about your experience. Like the fact that Julio, like that you lead Learn-A-Bits, the fact that like that's a community run program and that like we have nothing to do with it except like offer our community, like you're helping solve some of the challenges that the community is facing currently, you know. So it's like that's what Mint Bean means to us. And you know, even like, and I can talk about this later, but that's and we've always wanted to make it a more open and collaborative community where it's like we're not like I really try not to discourage, even if people are sharing resources that lead to other places, other conferences, if it really adds value to our community, like we'll let it go. We'll like, that's fine. It adds value to the community. We're not going to delete that message because it's some sort of third party affiliation. So we're mindful of like just how our devs interact with each other. So yeah, I see the love in the comments, and you know, so I appreciate that. I just wanted to say that. But yeah, John, back to intros.
All right. First off, I unfortunately have this like pretty bad cold right now, so please forgive me if I have to take some water breaks or something like that. I will turn the camera off if I have to blow my nose. So anyway, with all that being said, I'm actually, yeah, so I'm gonna give an intro, but it's gonna kind of become a little bit of a life story. So I promise it won't be a lifetime length. But so I grew up in Arizona. My entire background up until I got into tech was in music. So I've been a jazz bass player pretty much my entire life. So I'm 33 right now, and I started playing gigs when I was 15. So that was basically everything I've done. So I moved to Chicago after I graduated in 2012 from Arizona State University, and I had, you know, no job, no connections or anything. I was just like, hey, I'm gonna go for this. I wanted to pursue music more, so I built up like a really strong career there, and was really successful. It was an awesome time in my life. I met my wife. We got married, and she's always been an actor and also worked in restaurants. So in 2018, we moved to New York City just to further pursue acting and music. And I bet you can now tell where the story's going. But so 2018 was great. We had about a year and a half of pre-pandemic New York. And you know, January of 2020, I was teaching with this company called Jazz at Lincoln Center, which is like, you know, Lincoln Center obviously has a reputation. I was playing with like incredible musicians, and I really felt like, wow, you know, my dreams are finally coming true. My wife was still is a part of this theater company, but she was a part of a theater company starting to do assistant directing, and she was writing, and she was getting more auditions. And we were like, wow, you know, I feel like everyone has a story, but it's like 2020 is going to be our year, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, here we go. And then, of course, that didn't happen. So there was literally like a probably 48-hour period where I lost every gig I had for the year. I lost all of my teaching. My wife lost her job. She was working 2 jobs. She lost both of her jobs in one day. It just became like, what's going to happen? So along with, you know, the rest of the world, just what's going to happen. So a few more months go by. My wife starts to go back to work, and, you know, we're both on unemployment. It's like, you know, we still want to stay in New York. We still want to pursue our dreams and see what's going to happen. So then about August of last year, I had like, this is like, it's so ridiculous, but I basically have like this injury that I got as a kid that like affected some basically like my teeth. Like, so I had a crown fall out, and then that ended up costing us like $12,000. And my wife, she was going to get a better job. And when she basically quit her current job to take this better job, and then they told her, you know what, actually, we can't hire you anymore. So it was like October of 2020, we get this at the time, we thought it was only gonna be 10,000. It was like, we get this $10,000 bill, and my wife loses her job the second time. And then it just became very clear, like, okay, we can't stay here. Like, we can't, like, we need to redirect our lives. So my journey into tech was not because I was like passionate about tech or anything like that. It was like, I have to do this. I got a job at a wine shop, and, you know, I was basically like, I was carrying 50, 60 pound boxes of wine up and down stairs. I like had a foot ulcer, like I couldn't walk for like 2 days because I had injured myself. And so like we were at a very low point. It was like, all right, what are we going to do? So we moved back in with family. My brother's been a software engineer his whole life. And I was like, you know, I know that this is tech similar to music. It's sort of a career where you get what you put into it. So if you are willing to work hard and you're willing to learn, the industry will reward you for that. So I was like, I think I have to do this. Like I have my resume just says plays bass, you know, like I don't really have a sort of a corporate background. So I found App Academy. I started going there. And you know, honestly, like there were days, and Zach's actually, we're like good friends. Zach is part of the reason I made it through the boot camp alive, frankly. But there were days where I would get up and I would just like cry before I would log in, because I was so sad, because I was like, I didn't see my life going this direction. And then it's really interesting that Julio brought up community, because without the community, I definitely would not have made it through the boot camp. So there was even a point in time where I met with the mental health counselor at App Academy, because I just, it was just a lot of, I have to explain to boot camp grads that it's stressful. Of course, it's stressful. It's incredibly stressful. So this doesn't have a happy end. I meant to tell you at the beginning, like this has a happy ending, just so you know. So so we get to the boot camp, and I posted this story, like sort of abbreviated to however many characters LinkedIn allows you to post. And so I shared that story of my wife and my journey through to graduate this boot camp. You know, to put it in perspective, our class, the one that Zach and I were in, started at about 120, and 37 graduated. So it was very, it's highly competitive, very, very hard to get through. And I shared the story on LinkedIn, and my boot camp shared the story. And then a person at the company that I just accepted a job at saw the post and said, like, hey, we like your story, we like your background. And I went through the 10 interview process. There were literally 10 interviews that I had to go through. And I know this is not all about money, but now I have a job where I make more in 1 year than I did in the last 3 years combined. So I just see so many different possibilities for myself and my wife and my family and our future. And the one thing I did want to say, sort of concerning something, when I met with a mental health counselor at App Academy, he told me, all these things are happening on the outside, but you're still you. Like you're still John. You're not just John the bass player. And that helped me out a lot. I'm like, now I'm John the programmer, but I'm still just John. Like those things are those are externalities. So that's kind of like a little bit of my life story. I know, it's a little long, but I just want to share that. Maybe there's somebody here that kind of went through something similar, and I just wanted to kind of explain why I got to this point.
Wow. That was incredible. Really. Thank you. It's very rare when I'm at a loss of words. You put me in a loss of words. As you were telling me your story, I was thinking about just how it's like as a candidate, and I was also thinking about the employer experience of how, I feel like sometimes when we are coming into, whether it's like a secondary career or this is like your first option, we almost dehumanize the process of finding a job, and we think that it's just sort of like sending out these blank applications, right? It's like, okay, well, I got a message back from, like, I don't know, Amazon or like Mint Bean, and they're like excited to hire us, or like they want to move on with the next steps. But there's a person behind that message that like identified with your resume, your LinkedIn, your GitHub, and saw that like you were a fit for the company culture, what they were trying to achieve, whether it's through building applications. Well, of course that, because you're a developer. But like it's like whatever challenges that they're trying to solve, they're trying to find people that will help them get to that mission. So the fact that you've shared your story, and one that is of so many trials and tribulate, like, you know, just kind of like you've gone through quite a journey to get here, and you've faced multiple challenges, you know, have gone through the highs and lows of, like, you know, having a successful career, and then it all sort of like coming to a bust and not knowing like what I should do next, and then seeing this path, and then like people identify with that, employers identify with that, and they're like, okay, like John is, you know, like they don't want to just bring on someone who can write code. They want to bring on people. They want to bring on your experiences, the fact that you're a musician, the fact that, you know, that you're a family man, the fact that like you have, you didn't give up. I think in that entire story is that, like, what my takeaway from it is that you didn't give up. Like, it didn't matter how, you know, what life was serving. You were like, okay, well, what can I do next? Right. And I think a lot of us sometimes, like, we give up. Like, it's like life is hard, and like, I'm just going to let circumstances happen to me, right? So when employers see that, like, this person took it upon themselves, where was in a really shitty situation, and here's all the things that they went through to come out on the other side, like, they want to connect with that because it makes it real. And like I said, they're also humans who want to hire other humans. We're not hiring AI just yet. We haven't, you know, the robot revolution has not taken over yet. So yeah, that was beautiful. And yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just, you know, last thing I would say, you know, I don't feel like I was at the top of my class as a programmer, but I think, you know, maybe somebody out there is thinking like, maybe I don't have the skills. I think my you know, my background and I should say my personality and you know, I guess that story, you know, even just that story led to me getting the job even more than, you know, there was rounds of technical interviews. I had to have the skills, but just anybody out there that thinks like, you know, I don't have a comp sci degree, I don't have all these things, like, you know, maybe your background is going to be a fit somewhere, and you just need to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just want to add something, Julio, and I'll let you jump in. But you know, I think this is important here about comparing yourself, especially in the early days, with each other. Like I said this in the session 1 today, where like you graduate and you kind of look at each other, and you're like, you know, where can I place myself with my peers, especially the ones that you start getting to know so well. But it's not you're not in a competition against them. Like, this is your journey. Like, you decided to do this for you. And you know, like, there's opportunities for everyone. So it's not like, why did that person get hired with that company? There's a reason. Like, clearly the engineering team and the HR team connected with them. So, you know, I think that's really important to remember, is just focus on your own growth. And I think it just makes life more fun, and allows you to kind of keep going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely don't know where the stuff is going to come from. And this is also another one on the side of share everything that happens to you on your journey. Put everything out there, be vulnerable. Like, had he not shared his story, I don't know if you know, the outcome might not have been the same. But it's just like, you put that stuff out there, you know, like, interact with the world. They want to hear it. A lot of the times people are like, even with Learn-A-Bit and stuff, I'll tell people, post on LinkedIn, tell people about your projects, like, get like the conversation started. But they're like, oh, well, I don't think it's that great, you know, it's this and that. But it's all perspective based, and that links with that whole, like, when you compare yourself to this, you know, time ghost kind of thing, where it's an illusion. It's all an illusion, right? Like, what you perceive that better developer to be isn't that. What non-developers perceive you to be is not that. You know, what other developers perceive you as is not that, right? Because just think about it, it's all relative, right? You think about somebody that's got a senior position for you, they must know everything you know and more, right? But that's not logically a step. We've all had jobs where the managers are like, how the hell did they become a manager, right? there are senior level people that don't know very basic things. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be in that position. That doesn't mean that they don't know enough. It's just your conception of what they should know, what somebody in their position should know, isn't what it is. It's okay to not know everything. It's okay to have to look up on Google, have cheat sheets. You know, I sometimes forget how to link a style sheet to HTML. Like, seriously, right? Like these kinds of things where it's just like, you can't, but then it's like, you know, at the same time, you take that and you look at this other person, this almighty being that you're striving to be, right? That's getting paid like $250,000 and yada, yada. But take that and compare it to non-technical people, right? Like, how do your parents view you they think you're a technical wizard because you can like change the VCR time, right? You know, or you can, you know, like update your software or whatever it is, just because that's their relative point of view on technology, like that older stuff. So everything else beyond that is magic, right? So that's that illusion that you're seeing. So when you're making that comparison, you're a lot closer than you think you are.
Yeah, that's deep, man. But yeah, it's true. Like, I'm just trying to think about my own experience. Like when I graduated from GA, I had like, it was really hard because like I would come home and, you know, I had a partner who was already in the industry, and like I would see him code and I was like, I'm like just dumbfounded. Like I can't do that. Like I don't have like that language in my hands, or how like the questions that you ask Google, like that's like a category, I feel like, you know, and you can bring your own self down by comparing yourself to others, because like you said, your journey is yours, right? Like and that, like I think that's what you have to remember, and stay focused, because you came here because you wanted to change, right? That's why all of us, like, you know, the four of us, and a lot of everyone who's listening is here because they chose this career because there's a promise, like Ludo said, promise of a dream, right? And I, as much as I admired him for saying that, I kind of wish he didn't, because then that puts a lot of pressure. That puts a lot of pressure on the industry to live up to that. And like, you know, it's like, and that's a hard thing to live up to, because like, you know, promises are meant to be broken. They're just, you know, and you like, you have to come to this industry with like, you know, eyes fully open, and this reality of like, you know, we've come up with this sort of term of like, hey, like what's your burn rate, right? When you graduate to when you get that first job, how much income do you have saved up, where you're not going to end up on the street? So it's like, what does that look like for you? You know, is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 30 days? Is it 60? Is it 90? Like, what is it? And then that's when you start kind of like understanding, okay, like how long do I have to make sure that like I'm capturing, like I'm capturing that accelerated training and seeing like how, what I can do with it and what's out there, and like who can I connect with. It's a really tall order, and then the smaller the burn rate is, like the more challenging it is. And I think this stuff is not talked about in the marketing material, and that's why, like, and I've said this and I'll continue saying it because I understand brands really well and I understand business really well. Like it runs through my veins. Like I think I was meant to be in this, like in this specific sector. And like, it's just, they don't talk about this. And I think if they did, like, it would change the equation. It would change the equation on the mindset that you need to prepare yourself before you go into a boot camp, and what life is like, the realities, the challenges of, like, you know, taking something in 12 weeks, like the average is 12 weeks, right? Taking something in 12 weeks and saying that, like, now, like, go find someone who's willing to pay you money to do this thing, right? So
Yeah, I mean, that's that transition, right? That whole transition of getting to that point where you have these boot camps, and I'm not making any kind of judgment call on boot camps as a whole. They're offering a service, right? To give you, it's packaged and sold to you as like, hey, take this course. When you're done, most people find a job within 6 months, or so our, statistics or stats or whatever tell us, right? Whatever data they have pooled for whatever reason. So you buy that. That's what you buy. You buy that package of courses and then a job, right? Like with New Camp in particular. Again, not a judgment on New Camp at all, because I still liked New Camp. There was the whole curriculum for the certificate, which mine was front end, and afterwards there was a complimentary kind of like a 6-week, we help you find a job. That part was a little lacking, and that's when like the fear started to set in, right? Because in my mind, I'm going through the curriculum. All right, boom, 2 months down, 3 months down. All right, almost to the part where I get to look for a job. And like in my head, it's like, okay, worst case scenario, it takes 6 months, but I'll get a job. Cool, no problem. And then you're like in week 2 of the finding a job course, and you're like, wow, I'm like on my own right now. Like the panic starts to set in. You don't know what you're gonna do. So you start scrambling, you look online, and that's why it's just like very interesting, but you really need to like put yourself all into the code, kind of, if you're actually trying to make this into like a career change, because you need to feel comfortable in it. It needs to feel like okay as part of your life. You need to like doing it. And since there's so many facets to coding, and tech's always evolving, there's so many possibilities for the kind of code that you can create. So there's so many different kinds of code that you might love doing, and there's a bunch of different codes that you will hate doing. You have to figure this out. You have to feel it out. You have to feel like, am I a front end guy? Am I a back end guy? Even within that subset, what part of front end do I like? What part of back end do I like? Even within that subset, what kind of language do I like to use? What kind of framework do I want to use? And start there. It doesn't mean you're like pigeon-cooped to that position, but start where you like. Like I hit a bunch of walls. I've gotten low several times. Monarch knows. Monarch's helped me along the way. And one of the best talks I had with him was when he told me to just stop worrying and work on a project that you like. Like I was at a point where I was already for months, applications everywhere, rejections or nothing, right? My resume, I changed it like 3 times, no difference in response. My network not growing, just everything looked so terrible in that position. And like, it seemed so counterintuitive what he told me that time, but he was like, you know what, like, all right, I know you're about to run out of savings. I know you're almost out of unemployment. I know you still need a job. I know the window is closing, but forget all that for a week and build a project that you want to build. And at that point, I didn't know what, right? I knew some web design. I had the front end React course and all that stuff. And the only other thing I had come across that I enjoyed was Phaser. It just so happened it was Phaser because of the hackathon. I'd never come across Phaser before, never heard of it, and I was able to build a game. And at the end, I liked it. I'm a gamer. I've built games with my friend as the artist. Like he's been the coder. It's the first time I coded it myself. So I was like, you know what? Let me make another Phaser game. That's just a starting point. So it took me longer than a week, but I didn't care about anything else but this game. And again, it's a roller coaster. Everything you do, every project you do, you're going to be like, oh man, you're going to start out, this project's going to be so easy. I'm going to scaffold it out. Bam, bam, bam. A couple hours later, oh my God, why did I set it like this? Why is nothing working? Like, do I need to start over? You know what I mean? It's like, you're just emotionally all over the place, and you have to be okay with this. You have to like tune in with this because, and this is another thing about vulnerability. You start to realize, like, I can already see the faces light up, right? Everybody knows this. Everybody feels this, right? These are these commonalities where we can link together. And like, when we don't share it, we think that we're the only ones that experience it. But that's not the case at all. Anyways, so I made this game. I loved it. then there was another hackathon you had. I made another game, but it's time in React. So all of a sudden, like my LinkedIn starts having all these posts and projects. I learned about MetaTag.io. So like my posts actually look awesome. It's got a GIF, it's got like a little description. It's getting a lot of clicks and stuff. And all of a sudden my LinkedIn starts to look pretty good. Well, it just so happens that at some point somebody was looking for a Phaser developer, and not many people develop for Phaser, let alone post it on their LinkedIn as like one of their main things. So I was already looking pretty good at that position, you know, and then that got my foot in the door to get me to the interview, to get me into this startup company that I'm working for now. Literally a week before my unemployment ended, and I would have had to have accepted the next job that came my way because I need to pay bills, which is what I've done, right? Like I'm used to that. I'm used to biting the bullet and like, just, you know, this isn't exactly what I want to be doing, but it's not about that. You know, I'm not going to be like, oh, I don't feel that this is great, but it, you know, like if it pays your bills, that's what the job is for. That's what it's always been for me. This journey was about starting a career with something that actually has substance, right? The world is moving to tech. Everything is run by tech. Overnight millionaires. Even if you're not like, even if you don't make the next big tech thing, you're going to get paid pretty good within the next 5 years. Like,
Facts. Oh man, that was awesome. Yeah. Okay, how do I decipher that? That was a lot of information.
I'm sorry, I just keep talking sometimes. I don't have segues or anything.
Damn it, Julio. We still have to do Zach's intro.
Yeah.
But no, it was, oh, geez. I think like there's so many things in there that like we don't really think about. Like this isn't, honestly, this entire conference is no sales pitch for boot camps. They're not paying us to do this, by the way. You know, this is something that we wanted to do because our entire community is like pretty much 90% bootcamp grads, and we see the pain points, like we see the challenges, and you know, we wanted to run this conference because like we wanted to instill like pride in the institution, which is missing, honestly. Like it's missing. There's so much great work they do. There's so much that, like you just said, like you became, how long did it take you between like understanding that okay, like I really enjoy Phaser, to working with your current startup?
Less than 2 months, month and a half.
Okay, so
Like
when you kind of thought, so when
yeah,
you got,
sorry, we're doing this thing. Go ahead.
you go.
Well, it was, I think the biggest thing, like aside from it just being something that they were looking for and something that I had on my LinkedIn, it changed my whole mindset. Because like I was telling you, I was hitting these walls. I was getting really low. I got to the point where I didn't even know if tech was for me. And that was even more frightening than me imagining that I wasn't able to do it. Like the idea that, yes, I can do it, but I freaking hate it. Like that is just like, oh my God, like imagine you spend all day digging yourself a hole, right? Like what was the whole purpose of all that?
Exactly.
So when I shifted gears and I started doing the games, I was like, you know what? I don't have to worry about these crazy complex JavaScript algorithms. I don't have to worry about setting up backend servers. I don't have to worry about all these things. I can focus on this game. And it was a relief, because when you don't know what your specific topic to study is, you're all over the place. You're trying to learn everything all at once. You're trying, every time you dip your toes into a new technology, you want to understand it completely and how to encompass it into your understanding of everything else. But I mean, you're asking for the impossible, right?
Dude,
it's an ever-changing.
You know how complicated software development has gotten? The ecosystem has evolved. We're not living in the 90s. Like it's not just straight up HTML and CSS. Like there's a lot going on. And like, you know, if you open the hood, like a lot of these applications are like stitched, they're glued together. Honestly, they're glued
Yep.
together with a bunch of like shaky technologies, and there's like libraries that nobody knows like what's actually in there. And everyone's just trying to like figure it out. Everyone's just trying to figure it out. And you know, along, and that's where you guys come into the picture, and you're like, oh wow, that's so beautiful. And you're like looking at this like this beautiful monument. And you know, you don't see that it's actually like it's like held by smoke and mirrors.
Yeah. Don't open up the console logger. You'll see like all the errors and warnings and stuff.
Okay, we've got to get to Zach's intro. This is like 40 minutes into the, I apologize, Zach. This is no reflection. This is no reflection of how much I appreciate you being here. All right, the stage is
I don't mind. I feel like we've had a great discussion, you know, and plus there's no way I can match John's story over here.
Please.
Yeah, but mine kind of started like with a funny story, because I actually got started. I got accepted into university back then, under a CS degree, and then I went and I was like, yes, I love tech. I'm gonna do this. I took one lesson, intro to CS, and then I was like, no, I hate it. I can't do this. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't like it. It's completely not what I thought it was. So I dropped that class, changed pathways, left college, took a bunch of jobs, went through a whole bunch of different careers. Like I've done hotel management, logistics, freight forwarding, sales, retail, all that stuff. And then finally, like I have a friend online, and he's actually a senior dev, and we play games together, and he was like, hey, you know what, Zach, I think you might like software engineering, because you know, the way when we talk, we have a lot of the same mindsets. We like solving the same puzzles and sort of stuff. And he was like, you know what, just take a look into it. I was like, no, I did it in college, I hated it, I can't do it. And he was like, well, I mean, what class was that? And I was like, oh, it was C++. And he was like, well, that's the problem right there. You shouldn't have started with C++. Why would you start with C++? And it's because when I was like 18 years old, I go in and I know nothing, and I didn't know, like, you don't know you have access to the counselors. You just take whatever class people are. It's called Intro to Programming. So that's what I took. And yeah, that made me drop it. And then 20 years later, I'm back in the same spot. I'm like 38 years old, and you know, it's like I took a huge route, and my parents are like, you know what, you could have just done that in college and it would have been the same. But I don't think it was.
I get it. Like our parents have different expectations. It's like, what, like, I swear to God, if you don't come home with a 99%, it's like you're like we dropped you on your head. Like you were just like,
my dad was just like, don't end up in jail.
No, it's like fuck, like you got switched, and it's like their expectations are sky high. And you're like,
Latinos, we have the whole diversity spectrum here.
don't end up in jail even on the list. It's expected. There's no possibility you would end up in jail. That is like not even the base minimum, right?
Yeah,
right. They're like, they get the call and they're like, oh,
I honestly think my parents would have disowned me if I ended up in jail. Like, we don't know her.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like I wouldn't at this point. John and I were in the same boot camp. It was so mentally taxing. I don't think I could have done this 20 years ago. If I really went through with the program, I don't think I would have liked ending up in software engineering. I am who I am today because I took this huge meandering path, and then I tried out all the different things I thought I might like. You know, I thought, you know, I'm sure you guys have friends who like are really into one career and they love it, they know everything about it, and it was like their lifelong dream. And I thought, you know, hey, I'm just not gonna have that lifelong dream. I'm just gonna go through life and just settle for whatever job. And then I met, you know, software engineering, and I was like, oh, this is actually fun. And yeah, and like once I actually started the program, I was actually able to sit down. And I have ADHD. It's like it made my school life so hard. It made job so hard later. I'm sure a lot of you guys have ADHD too, or some sort of other things. And it's so hard to sit down and pay attention and mentally pull yourself into focus on this thing. But coding wise, I was able to do it, right? Like if you look at my GitHub Garden, I'm super proud. Like that since the second week,
I love that.
yeah, since the second week of boot camp until now, every single day is green because it was actually fun to sit down and do a little bit every day, But I feel like boot camp, it's definitely not for everybody. Like it was so hard. Me and my wife had so many different like arguments because I was so mentally focused. She felt like she was in a long distance relationship. It was really hard for her. She had to cover the cooking for me since it's usually my duty, but I was like, I can't touch anything during this boot camp. It was so stressful. I can't fail. It's like, yeah, we had a lot of arguments because like she was feeling neglected. She was feeling like I was abandoning her, but I was like, just give me the 6 months. I need to do this. I want to do this for us. It's not just for money. It's your life feels more like you're actually doing something meaningful if you can stick with it, if you can put in the hard work through this. I think it'll turn out great.
Yeah. Dude, that was pretty beautiful. Gosh, like oh gosh, you guys are making me like be like speechless, and that I don't find myself there often, so which is really nice. But yeah, no, that was awesome, Zach. And when I first met you, you're very humble. You're extremely humble. And it takes a lot of like strength to come back to something and learn, at a after 20 years of like doing other things. I mentioned you in the first session because like you have such an interesting path into tech. And like, you're right, like it's not easy. You do have to put your life on hold, right? Like Monarch and I have both watched each other break into tech. I watched him break into tech as his girlfriend. And I remember at that time, like it was so hard. It was taxing on the relationship. I was like, you don't give a fuck about me. Like, you don't want to see me. Like, what is this? Like, you just want to code all day. Like, and we were younger. So I was like, what is like, like he just wouldn't even want to hang out with me. And I was like, all right. So I guess I'm on my own. It was weird. Like it was a hard time. And and you do need to spend a lot of time with the code in order to get it. I was fortunate. I had a more understanding partner who like just let me be. But it's hard. Like sometimes you can, if you're in a relationship and the partner gets it, like beautiful. If they don't, sometimes like it's an education, and sometimes it's a partner, sometimes it's a parent. It can like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a romantic relationship. Like it's hard to tell people in your life that you're about to do something and it's going to require all your attention, and I can't see you, I can't spend time with you, and you just are going to have to understand. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable that like you guys have been through that. And yeah, thank you for sharing that story.
It would have to be taken that seriously. I think this is a commonality I'm seeing with all these stories, even with Monarchs, is that everybody here took it super seriously. Like you can't casually pick up coding. There's no way that's going to happen. I mean, maybe in like 5 years, you'll learn some HTML and CSS, but it's not, you're not, you need like, and like I was saying, everything's moving. It's constantly moving. It's something like you were talking about, somebody was talking, you were saying you learned C++, right? That's already kind of outdated. And I remember I gone to school for video game design way back when, before all that fell through. And I first learned on C++. I failed the class the first time. I had to take it again. Like it was crazy hard. And in the end, I made like a blackjack game or whatever. But back to the whole like enveloping yourself in it, you have to take it like it's, and that relationship thing you were talking about, I've experienced it too. And it's hard to translate the understanding that it doesn't mean that I care about anything else less. It's just that this is such a important moment in my life. It's such a pivotal point that if I am to say that I attempted this, I have to have given myself more than 100%. If I don't do that, I could resent anything or anyone for that reason. And we don't want to do that. And it's not that we would do that on purpose. It's kind of just a situational innate thing. We're really angry at is ourselves, but we'll, kind of push and project that to someone else because we're just so flustered and angry and we don't know how else to, to deal with that. So yeah, that definitely is tough.
Yeah. No, I really appreciated that, Zach. I think sometimes like our partners have to understand, and I think it's about communication. Monarch is here out of his social media hiatus because I asked him to. I said, I need your support. I want to do this thing called Eon, and I don't like not being present when I'm having a conversation. I can't be present and manage Discord. It's like, it's too difficult. There's this like changing of threads that I don't like being in. So I asked him to step outside of his hiatus and come back for like a week. And he understood. So yeah, I think sometimes you have to be honest with like the people around you. Like if you need their support, like if you're looking to, get them to take care of certain things while you're focusing on this, which is studying and breaking into tech. And you'd be surprised how much your friends, family, loved ones care and actually like want you to succeed, right? That was very like Oprah-like-ish.
Well, I mean, that
Now we all
advice,
cars.
that advice applies to like everything. You just do that with your life in general and you're good.
Well,
Yeah.
boot camps are a little bit different in that they want I think John and I literally dedicated like 12, 13 hours per day, every single day, including weekends. And I like every single waking moment other than restroom and eating, I was in front of the computer. Anybody who messaged me on Discord, I would be like immediate reply because I was here doing code and people like, I don't want to bother you. I'm like, I'm here doing code anyway. It's fine. Let's do this together. We can always study together, and having the support to, help each other through the boot camp. I feel like it was so helpful. I've met so many awesome classmates. A few of them are actually here. I've seen at least like 4 or 5 names that I know that we studied together. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty amazing. It's so difficult, but if you have the dedication, it gives you such a good you don't graduate ready to be hired. You graduate with a good basis to build off on, and working hard after you graduate, that gets you hired, right? But you already know more than enough to be a developer. You just need to learn how to use those skill sets. And that's what like working on your project, your portfolio, and the lead code, all goes and all that is, helps to showcase. So yeah, I think I hope it'll be a worth it journey for all of us over here.
I think it already is. I think like with the stories that the impact that I don't think like what you do for a living it's like it's important to, you know, be a dentist or engineer or a plumber. I think like it's a matter of like how much do you actually enjoy your life? Like how much of a purpose does your life have? So I think the fact, like, you know, with the stories that I'm hearing, like, sounds like y'all are leading very purposeful lives. You know, so I think it's like, I think that's what you have to think about. It's not necessarily about the money or like the time. But you know, having said that, like there's a couple of things that you mentioned about community and like finding buddies that like you are coding with. I think it just because it can be a lonely journey because like you're, you know, you've just walked away from friends and family. So you're in this alone. No one like in your, maybe like your physical space is doing what you're doing. And you want to find like communities that like you can connect with and like, you know, I think like finding even a buddy, like, you know, inside of those communities where like,
Mhm.
it's like, hey, let's like, you know, I've seen you around Slack or Discord, and it's like, you know, maybe like we host John from our community, Sanchez. He hosts study hours every day at like 4 p.m. I think Eastern, and he just like keeps the voice channel on, even if you're gonna come in or not, like, and he's just like there, you know, and that's just meant to be like, hey, if you kind of want to hang out and just want to code together, where you just leave like the call hanging, and you're just listening, you're jamming to music, because you can't code and talk at the same time. Like, what does that look
Mhm.
like, right? So it's like you just open up a voice call, you leave it open,
Yeah.
you just, you know, listen to music and maybe ask a question, or like, you know, um, when the need arises.
Yeah, a lot of people think that like a code mentor has to be like this like teacher or mentor, that to be that for someone else, you have to be at a certain level. But it can be something as simple as like what you just described, like having a room with people together. Like even if I had somebody who was at my same exact level and they didn't know the answer to the problem I'm having, them being there is going to help me solve it a lot quicker. It's kind of like having a spotter if you're at the gym. Like, you know, you're on the bench, you want them there for the reassurance that you're not going to die when that bar comes down, right? But in reality, you're doing all the work. You know, they're only there in case you need that help, right? It's that reassurance that actually makes you perform better.
And
Whereas if they weren't there, you'll question yourself and you're like, oh my God, you know?
and sometimes, you know, trying to explain the code to them halfway through, you're like, oh, so that's what I did wrong. You know, just having someone over to talk it over with, it's so helpful to just kind of bounce ideas off. You don't even need feedback sometimes, and you're like, explain that the act of explaining it helps you figure it out.
You need a real
Rubber
life
ducking it.
ducky, man. You need a
Yeah.
real life ducky. That should be the trending hashtag after this conference.
Yeah. I mean, you could even explain it to yourself. Like I've done that a couple of times, trying to like rubber duck yourself. Where you're just explaining it. It's like, all right, so why isn't this working? Well, this goes there. Well, why isn't that? Like you're almost playing like the two parts, like, you know, counteracting like why it is and isn't working.
Yeah.
I've joked with a lot of friends that I should put professional rubber ducky on my resume at this point, because like I've been there for a lot of our classmates when we are kind of bouncing ideas off each other, and I've been able to successfully help my classmates debug their code just by them having talked to me with it. And I think, you know, just as a joke, I can put professional rubber ducky.
Dude, you
Yeah,
know
and sometimes
my
you feel like you
name?
don't do anything.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Julio.
No, it's okay. Trying to find moments to speak here. It's like double Dutch.
No, I was gonna say that you know, me and the TA, we became best friends. He's like he's my buddy. Like, you know, I introduced him to Monarch, and we go out for dinner. Like, he's awesome. Like, he's awesome. And you know, he's a cybersecurity specialist. And it's like, you know, and I think that's maybe like what is different from physical cohorts versus like remote, is you don't necessarily like, it's like, how do you replicate? And I think this is what like the last couple of years the industry has been so confused with, like, how do we replicate that in-person experience? Well, the truth is you don't, right? You sort of play with the mediums that you have, and you're like, how does this fit into how I work? And if as a developer, like you're the way that you know, you work with someone online is doesn't look like the traditional way of like opening a Zoom call and having to look at each other, which is awkward for an hour. You know, so it's like, what other ways can you think of that solving that problem? Well, open up a call and let it hang, and just, you know, while you're listening to common music, which might happen if you were actually working with that person in the same room. So like I really like admire that about this industry, that like, you know, we're always trying to find interesting ways to use tech to help us solve our own problems. I don't know where I was going with that tangent, but there it is.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of collective unity is important. Like, so there's been a lot of situations where I try to find a solution to a specific problem I'm having, and there's no documentation or no solution readily available on Google. So I have to like problem solve it, right? When I get to that solution, what I should do is write an article and post it everywhere I can so I can help people avoid this same exact situation. But the reality of the matter is I have other things to do and I don't do that. So I have almost effectively made it certain that other people will have that issue and struggle as much as I did, right? And if nobody on Stack Overflow ever, like if everyone on Stack Overflow was like that, there would be no Stack Overflow. We would have none of the answers that we find, because most of my answers come from Stack Overflow doing the same exact thing. And that's this community of us sharing this information of when we cross this hurdle, leaving a little tip there next to the hurdle. Hey, here's how you cross it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of growth is really what we should be focusing on just in general. And that's where this whole pay it forward mentality and what I really like about Mint Bean, where it's just, even if you don't think you got much, share it and you're good.
You guys are too kind. Seriously, really, really, really appreciate it. But I feel like I've paid you to say that, which feels really awkward. So let's move on from the Mint Bean appreciation.
Navi is the bet. No.
Damn it, it was great. I said great. You got the words wrong. Minus $250.
No.
Awesome. Yeah, John, you've been quiet for way too long. We're gonna get you to say something.
You're gonna say something, yeah. So I sorry, part of it is because I just keep coughing. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I was thinking about a couple of things. You know, like this kind of idea of like pursuing your dreams and stuff like that. I feel like, you know, like my wife and I talk when we have kids. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to say that anymore. I feel like pursuing your dreams can give like a convoluted message, because you start to envision this dream. And now I think the best advice now that I have almost is like, find the work you enjoy doing the most and do that. And I just, especially now, it's like everything is, so many things are shifting, like in the entertainment industry and the arts industry, so many things are changing. It's like even 10 years ago as a musician, compared that what it was then to now, is so different that if I, like the dream that I would have had then, it's almost like not even possible now. So I think, you know, like a lot of this, the tech world is, it's so goal driven, but, and I think that's great, and that's it should be, but I'm also like, every day I want to get up and I want to like open my laptop and I want to go to, I've been using Code Academy Pro because they just have like everything. Like I've used that, or go to Front End Masters or something like that, and find those things that you want to work on, those things that are that are just inspirational in and of themselves. So that for me, it's a lot easier. Instead of thinking of some lofty goal or lofty dream, I just focus on what is it that I want to get out of bed and do, no matter, you know, no matter if anyone gives me money or whatever. Like if I just get up and I want to learn this, I want to do this. And there's some teachers, especially at App Academy, that sort of instilled that into me. I asked one of them after I graduated, like, what do I do now? Like, you know, here I am, I graduated, what should I do? And he was like, just build stuff, keep building, don't stop. And I instead of, even though I just said Code Academy Pro, but instead of just sort of getting in some kind of endless Udemy course cycle that never works out, like, I think just finding those things that you're excited to learn about, whether it's front end or back end or anything like that. That's helped me out a lot. Just this idea of like, for me, I've been going back, and even though like I have a job now, I still like, I know that, I want to keep this job, and I also want to be very good at it. Like, so I've been coding for just about 8 months now. So it's important for me to like be able to retain all that information, and finding those things that like are just pure joy for you to learn about, and pure joy for you to want to practice, especially in technology. Because I'm catching up on the Zoom chat from like an hour ago now, but yeah, I mean the similarities between being an artist or a musician or a dancer and all those things and coding are there. It's very strong because you're kind of used to sitting in a room by yourself and like working on one thing and trying to make that one thing really good. But I think, that same mentality of just like having a joy in creating something, try to hang on to that, I guess, if you can. That kind of is my biggest motivator, because I think, I'm very grateful that my job search was not, super long, but I know there are a lot of people that it will be very long. And I think the motivator, it has to come from yourself. Like, it's not going to come from, certainly not going to come from rejection emails, but it's like, it's going to come from like, what do I just find joy in? And do you wake up every day just being like, I get to learn more about software engineering. I get to learn more about the future. I get to be a part of building that. And I want to incorporate that into my daily life. So whether or not you're getting that job or you're getting that positive feedback, you're happy, you're content anyway. So that was something that, and obviously, like, look, I get it's easy for me to say I had like a 2-month job search. If it was 10 months, it would be hard. And that's where I think the community
don't knock it. That's awesome. Like, it's like, do you know how hard that is? That's like awesome. Don't knock it.
Yeah.
Like, it's awesome. Like, there's no set, like, there should be no guilt in like, oh, like, I was one of the lucky ones. It didn't take me that long. That concept is fucked. I've said that twice now. But like, it's like everyone's journey is so individual. Like, we learn differently, if we were to introduce a new topic and it was like, hey, I'm going to give this like new piece of information to the 4 of you, and then we're going to quiz you on it at the end, we're all going to come away from like that, reading that information or like processing it in a different way, so we're going to have different results. And it doesn't mean that like you processed in the information in a poor way. You came with it from a different angle, and the other person came with it from a different perspective. And like, maybe you just need to revisit it. And it's like, you just need to, you haven't fully processed the information. And that's what needs to happen. So it's like, there should be no guilt with having to process information faster. Like it could take, you could be employed immediately and someone else could take a year. That doesn't mean that the person who took a year is like, has any less IQ than the person who got employed at, week 0. That's just, maybe it was timing, maybe it was the opportunity presented it at the right time, at the right place, and they just happened to be moving in that direction. It could be just sheer, coincidence, or like, they processed information differently, and vice versa for you. So, yeah, take it with pride. Like, you did good.
For sure.
Thank you.
I mean, it's interesting to me because I always assumed that I would be bad at coding because I'm not a reader. I cannot concentrate for that long. If it's longer than like a paragraph or so, I'm going to have to reread that same paragraph again. And so this is, to me, was always, and I've tried reading, I've tried to get into it. This just always happens. I don't know what the reasoning is, but that, I guess that's kind of irrelevant.
I mean, it is kind of relevant. I mean,
It's
I
very
love reading,
relevant.
but even going through the course and trying to read those materials, it was like I had to read it 10 times through, 10 times through to be able to understand it, right?
Well, yeah, I was just saying, it's just like, I'll just adapt, because we all have, like you were just saying, we all have our own way that we learn, right? So like where I'm not strong at, you might be strong at. It's irrelevant in the sense, I guess, that I still have to adapt to it and figure out how to learn through this. So, I mean, at the beginning, it was very difficult. Repetition definitely helped for me. John was talking about like the creative aspect of coding. And that also, you know, like I'm an artist by nature, like I do designs and stuff like that before I went into coding. And it's, so when you're making these projects and then these creations, it's different when you're like making a project for your portfolio or for your LinkedIn, right? Versus when you're working on a project that someone else has to approve on. When you're a creative person and you make something, you feel this attachment to it, right? Like it is what it is because I made it this way. And so, and this is a problem that I had with graphic design as a like as freelance or profession or whatever, was that it's hard to take criticism when your reasoning behind doing the thing is from a creative perspective. And so you can take that personally if that is criticized. So that also took me a little bit to get over, where it was just like something like I spent this whole like 2 weeks on this whole project and it's like my baby and like, you know, all this stuff took all this effort, and you show it to someone and they're just like, oh, that's, why isn't this over here? And then like slowly your heart just starts breaking, right? Because you're just like, oh my God, it's like, hey, why don't you put this here? Hey, did you notice that this doesn't click when you click here and like this? And you're just like, oh my God, like, why did I even show you this? All of a sudden, what I thought was awesome is now broken down into like this, you know, this pile of rubble. But that's part of the process. That's the criticism. You accept it, you rebuild, and then you do it again. If you have that creative mentality, it's really hard to get over that. Which is, for me, was that difference of working on an actual team versus making my own things. Because when I make my own things, when it's done, it's perfect, right? Like whatever irregularities it has, it's meant to be that way.
Yeah, I guess you got to keep your pride in check. You know, to keep learning. That's really interesting. You know, we've hired, I don't know if, you know, we've talked about it in a couple of places, but we hired 10 developers from our community in the last year. And like, and they've all like moved on, most of them. Like we still have Brandon. He's awesome, by the way. You know, I say that, please don't poach him. You know, he's pretty awesome, and everyone has been pretty awesome. And like, you know, we wanted to give them those opportunities so that they can have the apprenticeship and the mentorship experience. Like as a startup, we couldn't offer them like competitive salaries, but we were really, really hands-on in training. And it's like, it's really interesting, like how much we also understand, like in terms of how people learn. And like, even like when you're hiring, like it's interesting, like there like some, and this is not a reflection of our team, by the way, but just like some things that we've like sort of processed as hiring managers or as employers, is that each individual has figured out how they learn and process new information. And sometimes that really fits with your company culture, and sometimes it doesn't. Like if you know, a lot of these, especially companies that are trying to work with applications that could be complex, they're like, it's like you're having to teach developers who don't necessarily, like, who are pretty new on some more complex concepts. So you want to make sure that that person has a really great attitude when it comes to just learning new things, and just being like humble on like how they take feedback. Like I can, like, taking feedback is a skill. Like it's not something that everybody has. Um,
I was asked that interview question, like literally what you just said, like on 3 separate occasions. They were like, they literally just, how do you take feedback, or like, or some variation, how have you responded to feedback in the past, things like that. I think it's really important, because you're basically just gonna get your code like shredded every day, and it's like they don't want to
Mhm.
have to like worry about your feelings, frankly. Like they don't. It's like, look, we're like, if you're not, as an applicant and as a future employee, trying to improve, like it's no secret that we're all sort of in this junior position. It's, yeah, I mean, that's that. I was really taken aback how many times I was asked that.
yeah, and they're not trying to do that. Like I've watched Monarch throw like hundreds and thousands of lines of code out like the bucket. And I don't lead the development side of our business. So on the business side, that makes an impact. And I'm like, but our team spent like time doing that, and you're just gonna throw it out. Like, what do you mean? Can you get me that ready in like another like 3 weeks? No, it's going to take 10. Like, so you're telling me that the 24 weeks of work that we've done is garbage? Like what is that? Like, it's like it's business and the dev team are constantly conflicted. And that's not just with a company at our scale. It's throughout. Like tech is really interesting. There's a lot of interesting companies out there. And the business of tech has grown like just is the last like weirdly the pandemic has you were talking about your experience with how like 2020 was like such a challenging year. 2020 has like the industry has just, oh my god, like it's not just the boot camp sector. It's like, think about how much like Zoom expanded, right? Like Amazon, a lot of billionaires became like further billionaires. um so it's like it's really interesting. And what's happening is like they're all creating like pretty amazing ecosystems, and they want to bring on talent. So there are plenty of jobs. There are plenty of jobs. It's just about like, how do you, they want to hire, and they have the money to hire the best talent, right? So what they want to do is, that's why there's also a lot of like people are hopping jobs. Like you're seeing mass exodus. Like the mainstream media has been talking about the mass exodus, and it's like, but like, are you seriously shocked that people want to make more money and to live happier lives? Like, is that
And to
really
feel
shocking?
valued, yeah.
Yeah, like what is this like, is this what the front page of the paper looks like today? And it's like, that is so shocking to me, that like that's where the corporate world is. But the truth is that like everybody wants to make their lives better. And if these companies are making like such great revenue, then that means that they want to connect with the right people. And it's just about like telling your story in a way where they see you fit into the culture. Because trust me, there's a lot of developers out there, but not everybody that can solve their unique problem.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I shared this in sort of the App Academy internal Slack when this happened, but there was a day when or there was a 2-day period. I had 12 interviews in 2 days, and every single interview started with, "Tell me about yourself," or "Tell me a little bit about your background." It was literally every single one. And I think exactly what you just said, like you need to be able to tell an engaging story about why you are here and why you are the perfect fit for this job. And and coming from a non-technical background, I thought that was really going to work against me. But I answered so many questions about my background. I was like talking, I know there's some other musicians in our series. I was like talking about harmony with somebody once, and I was like, this is weird. Like, I can't believe like this
Mhm.
tech. I'm interviewing for this tech job, and I'm like explaining, how I taught somebody an advanced, like jazz harmony topic, and it's like, you never know. And then they heard that and they were like, oh, that's really good. It's like, I would have never guessed.
Yeah, they are, and like for I came out from outside of tech, and I've experienced what interviews in finance looks like. And I can tell you, as a candidate and as an employer, interviews in tech look very different. They're always using like innovative ways to like understand people and their own processes. So they're just like, you kind of want to, like, you have to challenge your old ways of doing things, and sometimes just like be authentic. Like, I think not sometimes, it's actually better always to be more authentic than not.
You want to make sure that you fit in, like with the personalities of all the other devs and the environment. And funnily enough, like that's what you should focus on in that interview. I remember my first couple of interviews, mock interviews, I bombed horribly because I was so worried. The whole time I was in my head trying to make sure that I knew everything that I needed to know for the questions. And I was so busy going over that in my head that you can easily skip some words, or like you miss something and then you skip that beat. All of a sudden, everything you've been going over in your head, you're just falling down the stairs. The interview's still going on. And then all of a sudden you start bombing everything, stuff that stuff that 100,000% because you doubted yourself. You were focusing on the wrong thing versus focusing on that person behind the interview process, like the actual human that's there, and connecting with them.
Yeah, and I just speaking on that word connecting, I know it looks like we're at time, but I'm super available. Like, please write me on LinkedIn. I'm not at a point where I'm like, I have a lot of messages there. It's like I can't handle it. So I would love to hear everybody's story and talk, and please make that connection.
Yeah, thank you, John. You're about to start your new job, so be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah.
No, but thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Our second networking session had just started. It's super chill, just like this. Do join, get to know each other, share your stories, find your buddy. You gotta talk. You gotta talk to each other. This is the journey has just started, and like it's a really interesting ride if you want to take it. But that's that. And really, thank you for joining 2 conversations today. I'm so proud of doing the work that we do at Mint Bean and having these conversations. It does take a lot. Like, my mom is in the hospital and she's been there for the last 10 days. That means that this doing this sometimes is challenging, but I really love what we do. And that just makes it easier. So thank you for giving me that. That's what you all do for me. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you too, Navi. Thanks for, you and Monarch building this whole thing and allowing us all come together. Because you say that sometimes it feels like we're saying it and like it feels like you're paying us to say it, but it's like the whole reasoning behind this is the fact that that's the part that works, right? The whole reason this conversation is happening is because we need to open the doors for more people to understand that this is the key to progress you through your next steps.
Yep.
I don't want to say for everybody. I feel like I'm speaking for everybody when we all wish your mother the best.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Sure. Appreciate that. I really do. She's going on dialysis. So the doctor said great news. My dad is like, when is she coming home? So yeah, we're looking forward to it. I'm confident that she's gonna be fine.
And the Mint Bean community is here to support you if you need any help.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. All right. Take care, guys. See you in the other session. Bye.
Yeah.